The ceremonial cup trembled in Lucy's hands as she stood before the Council of Elders, their ancient faces carved from judgment and stone. The liquid inside glowed faintly amber, smelling of herbs and something bitter that made her wolf recoil in warning. Around her, the entire Shadowmere pack had gathered in the great hall, their whispers echoing off the vaulted ceiling like the rustle of dead leaves. "Drink," commanded Elder Marith, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Prove your loyalty to this pack, Lucy Thornwood. Prove you are not what we suspect you to be." Lucy's heart hammered against her ribs. The weakness tonic. A brew designed to suppress supernatural power, to render even the strongest wolf as helpless as a human. For a normal Omega, it would do nothing. But for someone hiding their true nature, someone concealing forbidden power, it would strip away every defense. "I don't understand," Lucy said, hating how her voice shook. "What am I being accused of?" 3 hunters were found dead at the northern border yesterday, Elder Corvin spoke, his gray beard bristling. "Frozen solid, ice crystals in their lungs, frost coating their weapons. The only one who discovered the bodies was you." "I reported them! I was trying to help!" "Or covering your tracks." Marith's eyes glittered with suspicion. "Ice magic has not existed in our bloodlines for 300 years. Not since the frost witches were purged from all wolf packs. If such power has resurfaced, the one wielding it must be identified and dealt with." The crowd's whispers grew louder. Lucy caught fragments of their words: unnatural, dangerous, abomination. Her hands tightened on the cup until her knuckles went white. She wanted to run, wanted to shift and flee into the forest where no one could find her. But running would confirm their suspicions, and they would hunt her down like the witches of old. "The tonic will reveal the truth," Marith continued. "If you are pure Omega, it will pass through you harmlessly. If you harbor forbidden magic, it will burn it from your system. Either way, we will have our answer." Lucy looked down at the amber liquid. This was it. The moment she had dreaded for 23 years, ever since the first time ice had bloomed from her fingertips in a moment of terror. Her mother had died keeping this secret. Her father had been exiled for trying to protect her. And now, with nowhere left to hide, Lucy had a choice. Drink and be exposed, or refuse and confirm their fears. She thought of the children in the pack orphanage where she worked, the little ones who called her Miss Lucy and clung to her skirts. She thought of old Thomas, the groundskeeper who had lost his son and looked at her with such grandfatherly warmth. She thought of all the ordinary, powerless moments of her life and how desperately she had tried to be nothing more than what they wanted to see. "Very well," Lucy whispered. She raised the cup to her lips. The tonic tasted like ash and nightmares. It burned going down, a fire that spread through her chest and into her limbs. Lucy gasped, dropping the cup. It shattered on the stone floor as she fell to her knees, clutching her stomach. The pain was immense, like being turned inside out, like every cell in her body was screaming. And then something happened that no one expected. The burning stopped. The pain crystallized, hardening into something cold and bright at the center of her chest. Lucy felt it spreading outward, not suppression, not weakness, but a door being thrown open after years of being locked. The tonic that should have stripped her power was feeding it instead, awakening something that had been carefully contained. "Impossible," Marith breathed. Frost crept across the floor from where Lucy knelt, spreading in delicate patterns like frozen ferns. The temperature in the great hall plummeted. People stumbled back as their breath turned to white mist. Lucy looked up, and her eyes had changed. Winter blue shot through with silver, glowing with an otherworldly light. "What have you done?" Lucy's voice echoed strangely, as if spoken through ice caverns. She hadn't meant to sound threatening, but the words came out wrapped in cold fury. "You tried to break me. You tried to burn out the thing I was born with, the gift that runs in my blood." "Seize her!" Corvin shouted. 4 guards rushed forward. The moment they touched Lucy's arms, they cried out and jerked back, their hands red and blistered with frostbite. More frost spread from Lucy's body, climbing up the stone pillars, coating the windows in intricate spirals of ice. She stood slowly, and power radiated from her in waves of glacial cold.
"I never asked for this," Lucy said, and her voice cracked with genuine anguish. "I have spent my entire life trying to be small, trying to be harmless, trying to be what you needed me to be, and still, it wasn't enough. Still, you looked at me with suspicion and fear. You are an abomination," Marith screamed. "A witch's spawn. You have no place in this pack." The word cut deeper than any blade. Lucy had known it was coming, had heard it whispered in her nightmares. But hearing it spoken aloud by the woman who had helped raise her made something inside her chest shatter like glass. "Then I'll leave," Lucy said quietly. The ice stopped spreading. The temperature stabilized. She looked around at the faces of the people she had lived among her whole life. The baker who had taught her to make bread. The warriors who had trained her in basic combat. The mothers whose children she had cared for. Not one of them met her eyes. "I'll go, and you'll never have to fear me again." "You think we'll just let you walk away?" Corvin drew his sword. "You're too dangerous. We cannot allow such power to exist outside our control." "Then what?" Lucy's voice hardened. "You'll kill me here? In front of everyone? Prove that you're no better than the humans who hunt us?" The great hall's doors burst open with a crack like thunder. A massive black wolf bounded through, larger than any Lucy had ever seen, its fur gleaming like a raven's wing. The crowd scattered with cries of alarm as the beast shifted mid-stride, bones realigning, muscles reforming, until a man stood where the wolf had been. Lucy's breath caught. She knew who he was. Everyone in the Northern Territories knew of Raven Nightfang, Alpha of the Storm Ridge Pack, the most powerful alpha in 300 miles. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with black hair that fell to his collar and eyes like molten gold. Scars traced his jaw and collarbone, evidence of countless battles. He wore the informal clothes of someone who had traveled fast and cared nothing for ceremony. Dark pants, boots, an open shirt that showed the powerful lines of his chest. "That's enough." His voice was deep and resonant, carrying the unmistakable weight of Alpha command. Even the elders felt it, their spines straightening involuntarily. "Alpha Nightfang," Marith recovered first, though her voice was uncertain. "This is pack business. You have no authority here." "I have every authority." Raven's golden eyes swept the room before landing on Lucy. The intensity of his gaze made her shiver, but not from cold. "When I heard rumors of ice magic resurfacing, I came to investigate. What I find is a terrified young woman being persecuted by those who should protect her." "She killed 3 hunters," Corvin protested. "Used forbidden magic." "Those hunters were from the Crimson Fang sect," Raven interrupted, his voice cutting like a blade.
rogue humans who have been hunting supernatural creatures for sport. They've killed 17 wolves in the past month alone. If this woman stopped them, she should be celebrated, not condemned. Lucy stared at him. He was defending her. This powerful alpha who had no reason to care about a nobody Omega was standing between her and the council's judgment. The magic itself is forbidden, Marith said, but her voice had lost its certainty. The old laws state... The old laws were written in fear and ignorance, Raven said flatly. The frost witches were not purged because they were evil. They were purged because they were powerful, and weak alphas feared what they could not control. He turned to face Lucy fully, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, wonder, something that made her heart skip. What is your name? Lucy Thornwood, she managed. Lucy. He said it like he was tasting something precious. How long have you had this power? Since I was born. My mother had it. Her mother before her. Lucy's voice strengthened as she spoke. They hid it, buried it, taught me to bury it too. But it's part of me. I can't cut it out any more than I can stop being a wolf. Raven nodded slowly. And these people who raised you, who benefited from your labor and your loyalty, they reward you with poison and accusations. She is dangerous, Marith insisted, but she sounded desperate now. Untrained, uncontrolled. Then train her. Raven's words rang through the hall. I am formally requesting sanctuary for Lucy Thornwood under Storm Ridge Pack law. She will come with me where she will be protected and taught to master her gifts. Any who try to prevent this will answer to me personally. The threat in those words was unmistakable. Storm Ridge was the most powerful pack in the region. No one wanted to make an enemy of Raven Nightfang. You cannot just take her, Corvin blustered. She belongs to Shadowmere. She belongs to herself. Raven's eyes flashed with gold fire. Or are you claiming ownership of pack members now? Shall I report that to the High Council? Silence fell. The High Council governed all packs, and they took a dim view of alphas who treated their people as property. Marith and Corvin exchanged glances, and Lucy could see them calculating, weighing risks and benefits. If she goes with you, Marith said finally, it must be her choice. We will not be accused of forcing her into exile. Raven turned to Lucy. What do you say? Will you come with me to Storm Ridge? Lucy looked at him, the stranger who had appeared like something from a story, offering her a way out when she had none. She looked at the elders who had tried to poison her. She looked at the crowd who had watched her suffer with cold eyes and colder hearts. The choice should have been difficult, but it wasn't. I'll go, Lucy said clearly. I choose Storm Ridge. Something flashed in Raven's eyes. Triumph, satisfaction, and something else she couldn't name. He extended his hand to her, and when she took it, warmth flooded through her body. Not the burn of the tonic, but something infinitely better, like coming home, like finding a piece of herself she hadn't known was missing. Then let's leave this place, Raven said. His hand tightened on hers. You have nothing here worth staying for. He was right. As Lucy walked out of the great hall with her hand in his, not one person from Shadowmere Pack tried to stop her. Not one voice called her back. They simply watched her go, and the ice she left behind on their floors would take weeks to fully melt. The journey to Storm Ridge took 3 days. Raven set a steady pace through the forest, sometimes in wolf form, sometimes human, always staying close to Lucy. He didn't push her to talk, didn't demand explanations or demonstrations of her power. He simply existed beside her with a quiet steadiness that made her feel safer than she had in years. On the second night, as they camped beside a stream, Lucy finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why did you help me? You don't know me. You had no reason to interfere." Raven was silent for a long moment, staring into the campfire. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "I told you the truth about the hunters. That much was real. But there's more." Lucy waited, her heart beating faster. "I felt you," Raven said quietly. 3 days ago, I was in my territory, dealing with a border dispute, and suddenly I felt this surge of power, cold and bright and absolutely unique. It called to me like nothing ever has. He looked at her then, and his golden eyes were intense enough to steal her breath. I spent 2 days tracking that feeling across miles of wilderness. When I arrived at Shadowmere and heard what was happening, I knew. The power I felt was yours. "But why would you feel me?" Lucy's voice came out barely above a whisper. "We're not related. We're not—" She stopped, her eyes widening as impossible understanding dawned. Raven smiled, but it was tinged with something bittersweet. "You're a smart woman. I think you've already guessed." "No," Lucy shook her head. "That's not possible. You're an alpha. I'm an omega. We can't be—" "Fated mates." Raven said the words she couldn't. "The bond that transcends rank, that chooses without logic or reason. Yes, Lucy, we can be. We are." The world tilted. Lucy stood abruptly, needing distance, needing air. "This is insane. Things like that don't actually happen. They're just stories to make lonely wolves feel better about being alone." "They're rare," Raven agreed, standing as well but not approaching. "Maybe 1 in 10,000 wolves ever finds their fated mate. I stopped believing I would find mine years ago." His voice softened. "And then I felt you. And everything I thought I knew about my future changed." Lucy wrapped her arms around herself. "You don't even know me." "Not yet," Raven acknowledged. "The bond tells me you're mine. But I'm not so primitive that I expect you to simply accept that and ask no questions. You've been through hell, Lucy. The last thing you need is another person trying to control your choices." "Then what do you want from me?" "Time." Raven's answer was simple. "Come to Storm Ridge. Learn to control your power. Let me show you what it means to be part of a pack that values you. And if, after all that, you decide the mate bond is something you want to explore, I'll be waiting. If not—" He paused, and pain flickered across his features. "If not, I'll accept your choice, even if it kills me." The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in Lucy's chest. She had spent so long being afraid, being small, being nothing. And here was this powerful alpha laying himself bare, offering her everything and demanding nothing. "I don't know how to do this," Lucy admitted. "Any of this. the power, the bond, being anything other than what I've always been." "Neither do I," Raven said with a slight smile. "I've led a pack for 10 years. I've won wars and negotiated treaties and killed enemies in defense of my territory. But I've never had a mate. I've never met someone who made my wolf howl with recognition the moment I sensed them." He took a careful step closer. "We'll figure it out together, if you'll let me try." Lucy looked at him, really looked at him. She saw strength, yes, but also uncertainty. Saw power, but also patience. Saw a man who had traveled for days to save a stranger because something inside him said she mattered. "Okay," Lucy said softly. "We'll try." The smile that transformed Raven's face was like sunrise breaking over mountains. He didn't reach for her, didn't close the distance between them, but the warmth in his eyes was almost tangible. "Thank you." They reached Storm Ridge on the afternoon of the third day. The pack's territory was stunning. Rolling hills covered in pine forests, with the pack house built into the side of a mountain. It was 3 times the size of Shadowmere's hall, built from dark stone and timber, with wide windows that caught the light. As they approached, wolves began emerging from the trees and buildings, gathering to see their alpha return. Lucy felt their eyes on her and fought the urge to hide behind Raven. She forced herself to stand tall, to meet their gazes with calm, even as her heart raced. These wolves were all strangers. They had no reason to accept her, especially not with power that marked her as different, dangerous. Raven shifted seamlessly into alpha mode. His voice carried across the assembled pack with easy authority. "This is Lucy Thornwood. She is under my personal protection and is a guest of Storm Ridge. Anyone who treats her with disrespect answers to me." A woman stepped forward from the crowd, tall and elegant with silver-streaked auburn hair. "And what exactly is she a guest for, Alpha?" The woman's tone was respectful but questioning. "That's pack business, Mira." Raven's voice gentled slightly. "But since you're my beta and entitled to know..." "Lucy carries a rare gift, ice magic, inherited through her bloodline. She was persecuted by her former pack and has come here seeking sanctuary." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Lucy was surprised by the tone. Not fear or hostility, but curiosity, interest. Even a few expressions that looked almost excited. "Ice magic?" A young man pushed forward, his eyes bright. "Like the old stories? The Frost Guardians?" "Something like that," Raven said. "Which is why Lucy will need support as she learns to master her abilities. I expect everyone to make her feel welcome." The command in his voice was clear. The pack members nodded, some smiled at Lucy, and slowly the crowd began to disperse. But the woman named Mira remained, studying Lucy with sharp green eyes. "Well," Mira said finally, a smile tugging at her lips, "this is certainly interesting. Walk with me, Lucy Thornwood. Let me show you to your quarters." Lucy glanced at Raven, who nodded encouragingly. She followed Mira into the pack house, through corridors that were warm and well lit, so different from the cold stone halls of Shadowmere. Other wolves passed them, offering greetings to Mira and curious but friendly looks to Lucy. "I can tell you're nervous," Mira said as they climbed a staircase. "That's natural. But Storm Ridge isn't like other packs. Raven has built something different here. We value strength, yes, but we also value uniqueness. Gifts that set wolves apart are celebrated, not feared." "Even gifts like mine?" Lucy asked quietly. Mira stopped at a door and turned to face her. Especially gifts like yours. 20 years ago, we had a pack member who could commune with birds, another who could sense earthquakes days before they happened. Raven himself has abilities beyond normal alpha strength. Did you notice how fast he moves? How completely his presence fills a space? She pushed open the door. We understand that power comes in many forms. Your ice magic is just another expression of what makes wolves extraordinary. The room beyond was beautiful, spacious and bright, with a large bed, comfortable furniture, and windows overlooking the forest. Lucy walked to the window, overwhelmed by the kindness, the acceptance, the sense that maybe she had finally found a place where she could breathe. "Thank you," Lucy said, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means." "I think I do." Mira's voice was gentle. "Rest today. Tomorrow, we'll start teaching you control. And Lucy?" She paused at the door. "Whatever happens between you and Raven, and I have eyes, I can see what's building there. Know that you're welcome here for yourself, not because of him. Your place in this pack is your own to claim." After Mira left, Lucy sank onto the bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it felt like being reborn. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to hide, didn't have to be small. She could be herself, power and all, and that was not only accepted, but valued. The days that followed were unlike anything Lucy had experienced. True to Mira's word, her training began immediately. An older wolf named Duncan, who had some experience with elemental magic, worked with her on control exercises. Lucy learned to summon ice deliberately, to shape it, to let it flow through her without fear. "The key is acceptance," Duncan explained as Lucy practiced creating ice sculptures in the training yard. "Your old pack taught you to fight your nature. That's why it burst out uncontrollably when you were stressed. Here, we teach you to embrace what you are. The power is part of you. Work with it, not against it." Lucy focused on the energy in her core, that cold, bright center that had awakened when she drank the tonic. Instead of pushing it down, she let it rise. Ice bloomed from her fingertips, delicate and beautiful, forming into the shape of a wolf mid-leap. She held it for a moment, marveling at the precision, then let it dissolve. "Better," Duncan said with an approving nod. "You're learning fast." It wasn't just the training that changed Lucy. It was everything. The way pack members greeted her warmly in the hallways, the way children ran up to her in the common areas, curious about the ice she could make, begging her to create frozen flowers and animals. The way even the warriors treated her with respect, recognizing that her power, while different, was formidable. And then there was Raven. He kept his promise about giving her space, never pushing, never demanding. But he was always nearby, in the training yard, watching with quiet pride as she mastered new techniques. At meals, sitting close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. In the evenings, when the pack gathered for stories and songs, his eyes finding hers across the fire. The mate bond hummed between them constantly now, a golden thread of awareness that let Lucy feel his emotions like echoes. She felt his satisfaction when she succeeded at something difficult, felt his anger when she recounted stories from Shadowmere, felt his desire, carefully banked but unmistakable, whenever they were close. And she felt her own response growing stronger each day, the way her wolf perked up whenever he entered a room, the way her skin tingled when his hand brushed hers, the way she dreamed of golden eyes and the promise of belonging. 2 weeks after her arrival, everything changed. Lucy was in the forest, practicing with Duncan, when she felt it. A spike of fear through the mate bond, so sharp it stole her breath. Raven was in danger. Without thinking, she ran, following the pull of the bond deeper into the trees. Duncan called after her, but she didn't stop. She found them in a clearing, Raven surrounded by 5 rogue wolves, their eyes yellow with madness. Blood streaked his shoulder where teeth had torn through. He fought with devastating skill, but 5 against 1 was too many, even for an alpha of his strength. Rage filled Lucy, cold and absolute. How dare they hurt him? How dare they threaten what was hers? The thought shocked her. When had she started thinking of Raven as hers? But there was no time for introspection. Lucy raised her hands, and power flooded through her. Not just ice, but winter itself. The temperature plummeted 40 degrees in seconds. The ground beneath the rogues' feet turned to slick ice. The air grew so cold that their breath froze in their lungs. "Get away from him!" Lucy's voice rang with command, with fury, with power she had never fully unleashed before. The rogues turned toward her, snarling. The largest lunged. Lucy swept her hand in an arc, and a wall of ice spikes erupted from the ground, impaling the rogue mid-leap. He fell with a cry, dead before he hit the earth. The others hesitated. Lucy advanced, ice spreading from every footstep, crystallizing the very air. She was beautiful and terrible, a winter storm in human form. The rogues broke and ran. She let them go, all her focus snapping to Raven. He was staring at her with wonder and something fiercer. "Lucy, you're hurt." She reached for him, her hands gentle despite the power still crackling around her. The ice melted from her skin as she touched his wounded shoulder, checking the damage. "They bit you. We need to get you to the healer. I'm fine." Raven caught her hands, holding them against his chest. His heart thundered beneath her palm. "You saved me." "Of course I did." The words came out sharp, with residual fear. "You idiot. What were you doing out here alone? Where was your guard?" "Scouting the border. I sent them ahead." Raven's hands tightened on hers. "Lucy, what you just did, that was incredible. You're incredible." "I killed someone." Lucy's voice shook as reality crashed down. "I killed that rogue, without hesitation." "You protected your alpha." Raven's voice was fierce. "You protected your mate. There is no shame in that, no guilt to carry." "My mate?" Lucy looked up at him, and everything she'd been holding back, every fear and want and desperate hope, rose to the surface. "Is that what you are to me?" "What do you feel?" Raven asked softly. "When you look at me, when you think of me, what does your wolf tell you?" Lucy closed her eyes. She felt the bond blazing between them, stronger than ever now that she'd acted on the protective instinct it created. She felt her wolf's absolute certainty. This man was theirs, belonged to them, was meant for them. She felt her own heart finally admitting what it had known from the first moment he'd defended her. "Mine," Lucy whispered. "You're mine." Raven's control shattered. He pulled her close, one hand cupping the back of her head, the other wrapping around her waist. "Say it again." Mine. Lucy's arms came up around his neck. You're mine, and I'm mine. Raven growled the word against her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. My mate. My fierce, powerful, extraordinary mate. When he kissed her, it was like lightning and thunder, like fire and ice meeting in perfect harmony. Lucy kissed him back with everything she had, channeling weeks of longing and denial into the press of her lips, the touch of her tongue. Raven groaned, his hands tightening on her, pulling her impossibly closer. They broke apart, gasping. Raven pressed his forehead to hers, his eyes blazing gold. I love you. I know it's fast. I know we're still learning each other. But I love you. I've loved you since the moment I felt your power calling to mine. I love you too. Lucy laughed, giddy and breathless and more certain than she'd ever been of anything. This is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Completely, Raven grinned. Want to do it anyway? Yes. Lucy pulled him down for another kiss, this one softer, sweeter. Yes to all of it. The bond, the mating, the life together. Yes. The sound Raven made was pure satisfaction. He scooped her up, making her laugh, and started back toward the pack house. We're doing this properly. The whole pack will witness. You're going to be my Luna, and everyone will know it. Raven! Even will heal in an hour. I'm an alpha, remember? He looked down at her with such open adoration that Lucy's breath caught. Besides, I've waited long enough. I'm not waiting another second to claim you before the pack. The ceremony happened that night under the full moon. The entire pack gathered in the clearing behind the pack house, forming a circle of witnesses. Mira stood as officiant, her voice carrying across the assembled wolves with formal gravity. We gather to witness the mating bond between Alpha Raven Nightfang and Lucy Thornwood, Mira intoned. A bond recognized by fate itself, acknowledged by both parties, and celebrated by this pack. Raven stood across from Lucy, magnificent in formal clothes, black shirt, dark pants, his hair pulled back to show the strong lines of his face. But his eyes were all for her, burning with possessive pride and tender devotion. Lucy wore a dress that Mira had found for her, deep blue like winter twilight, simple but elegant. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and someone had woven small white flowers through the strands. She felt beautiful, powerful, exactly where she was meant to be. Raven Nightfang, Mira said, do you accept this woman as your mate, your equal, your partner in all things? I do. Raven's voice rang clear. Before this pack and the moon above, I claim Lucy Thornwood as mine. I swear to protect her, honor her, stand beside her in strength and in struggle. She is my mate, my Luna, and I am hers completely. Lucy Thornwood, Mira turned to her. Do you accept this man as your mate, your equal, your partner in all things? Lucy's voice didn't shake. I do. Before this pack and the moon above, I claim Raven Nightfang as mine. I swear to stand with him, to bring my power in service of our life together, to be the Luna this pack deserves. He is my mate, my alpha, and I am his completely. Then seal the bond, Mira said with a smile. Raven closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands cupped Lucy's face with infinite gentleness, and when he kissed her, The bond between them blazed to life, a connection so profound it was almost visible, threads of gold and silver light wrapping around them both. Lucy felt it click into place, felt Raven's presence settle into her very soul, a part of her, now and forever. When they broke apart, both their eyes were glowing, his gold, hers silver blue. The pack erupted into howls of celebration, the sound echoing through the forest. Lucy laughed as Raven swept her into his arms and spun her around. "My Luna," he said against her ear. "My incredible, powerful, perfect Luna." "My Alpha," Lucy replied, his jaw, his cheek, his lips again. "Mine." The celebration lasted hours. Food and drink, music and dancing, wolves in both human and animal form reveling in the joy of their alpha finding his mate. Lucy was passed from person to person, receiving congratulations and welcomes, feeling the pack bond settling around her like a warm blanket. She was one of them now, truly, completely one of them. Late in the night, Raven stole her away from the festivities. They walked to an overlook above the pack house, where they could see the entire territory spread beneath them. Forests and hills bathed in moonlight, dozens of small lights marking where pack members lived and laughed and loved. "This is your home now," Raven said, standing behind Lucy with his arms wrapped around her waist. "All of this, the land, the pack, the life we'll build together." Lucy leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong against her spine. "I still can't believe this is real. A month ago, I was terrified, hiding, convinced I'd die alone with my secret." "You're not alone anymore." Raven's arms tightened. "You never will be again." "What about Shadowmere?" Lucy asked quietly. "They'll hear about this. About us. What if they come?" "Let them." Steel entered Raven's voice. "Let them see what you've become. Not the frightened Omega they tried to break, but a Luna of the most powerful pack in the North. Let them see you standing beside me as an equal, as someone magnificent." Lucy turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had saved her, who loved her, who had given her a place to belong. "You know what the best part is?" "Tell me." "The tonic was supposed to reveal my weakness, show the world I was dangerous, uncontrollable, unworthy." Lucy smiled, and ice crystals danced in the air around them, catching the moonlight like diamonds. "Instead, it set me free. It brought me to you. Everything they meant for harm became the greatest gift of my life." Raven kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, his voice was rough with emotion. "I will spend every day of our lives making sure you never regret choosing me." "I could never regret you." Lucy touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw, the scar on his cheek. "You're my fated mate, my alpha, my love. How could I regret the best thing that ever happened to me?" They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, looking out over their territory. Behind them, the pack celebrated. Before them, their future stretched vast and full of possibility. And between them, the mate bond hummed with contentment, two souls finally finding their other half. "Come on," Raven said, taking her hand. "Let's go back to the celebration. I want to dance with my Luna under the stars." Lucy laced her fingers through his, feeling the rightness of it, the perfection of their joined hands. "Lead the way, my love." As they walked back toward the pack house, toward music and laughter and the life they would build together, frost bloomed in Lucy's wake, delicate patterns on the grass, tiny ice crystals floating in the air. But where before her power had been a curse to hide, now it was simply beautiful. A manifestation of what made her unique, celebrated rather than condemned. She was Lucy Thornwood Nightfang, Luna of Storm Ridge Pack, mate to the most powerful alpha in the north, wielder of ice magic that could freeze any threat. She was fierce and loved and exactly where she belonged. And she had never been more free. Did you like the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell us which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Shout out from our friends in Texas, England, New York, Canada, and more. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!